They say that once your soul has been touched by nature, you will never be the same again. And sometimes, a small kitten disappearing under a full moon can bring back more than just a reunion. Many years later, on a gently rainy afternoon, June stood by the window of the old house, her hand softly brushing the frayed wicker basket. At the edge of the forest, a dark silhouette quietly emerged, unclear whether it was real or merely a memory. She didn't call out. There was no need to, because she knew true love never leaves. It merely changes shape, change name. And sometimes, only under the moonlight, do the unexplainable things reveal themselves. The September full moon hung suspended in the sky, illuminating the peaceful town of Silver Pine nestled beside the edge of Glacier National Park. Silver beams filtered through the window panes of the Harper family's home at 16 Cedar Street, casting their light on a woven basket where Nimbus, the most adorable black kitten in town, was curled up fast asleep. Nimbus had been born in the Harper's garage 2 months earlier, the sole survivor of a litter of 4. The mother, stray with fur as black as wet coal, had vanished right after giving birth, leaving Nimbus in the care of the family. Among them, the one who bonded most deeply with Nimbus was June, a 12-year-old girl with fiery red hair like autumn leaves. Every day, June gave all her love and tenderness to Nimbus, as if healing a part of herself through him. Tonight, while the whole family slept, June lay wide awake, eyes fixed on Nimbus. Lately, something had made her uneasy. Nimbus often grew restless after dark, especially on nights with a full moon. He would climb onto the windowsill, staring out at the forest as if drawn by a distant, unheard call, a look June had never seen before. Tonight, under the brightest moonlight, Nimbus suddenly sprang up. His ears perked, body tensed in full alert. June pretended to be asleep, barely opening her eyes to watch. The kitten walked toward the slightly open window and made a strange sound. Not the usual soft meow, but something else. A call, a signal. Within seconds, a large dark figure appeared outside the window. June nearly screamed when she realized it was a fully grown bobcat. Under the moonlight, she could clearly make out the defining features: a large head, upright ears tipped with black, and a spotted coat. What was most strange was that Nimbus showed no fear. On the contrary, he seemed to be greeting the stranger. The bobcat studied Nimbus with a cautious gaze, then gently grabbed him by the scruff and disappeared into the night. June jumped up, racing to the window. She caught a glimpse of the bobcat running toward the forest, carrying Nimbus safely in its mouth. Her heart pounded wildly. Nimbus had been taken. She wanted to scream and wake the whole house, but something made her stop. Who would believe such a strange tale? A bobcat kidnapping a house cat, and even if they believed her, would they be able to save Nimbus in time? That night, June tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Her mind filled with terrible scenarios, Nimbus becoming a meal for wild animals, or him lost and alone in the cold forest. The next morning, June told her parents about Nimbus's disappearance. They helped her search around the house, calling his name everywhere, but found no trace. Her mother, Elena, reassured her that cats often wandered off for days and would come back when hungry. Her father, Tom, suggested printing flyers to post around the neighborhood. No one considered the possibility that Nimbus had been taken by a bobcat. A week passed with no news. June went to school in a fog of sadness, her thoughts filled only with Nimbus. Every night she left food and his favorite toys on the porch, hoping he'd catch the scent and return. But every morning, the bowl remained untouched, save for a few ants crawling nearby. On the 10th night, as June lay in bed staring at a photo taken with Nimbus on her last birthday, she suddenly heard a faint scratching at the window. Her heart thudded. June jumped up and threw the window open wide. A black cat leapt into the room. "Nimbus!" she cried, rushing forward to scoop him up in her arms. But that joy lasted only seconds before she realized something was very wrong. This cat looked exactly like Nimbus. Jet black fur, the small white patch on his chest. Same build, but the eyes no longer held that gentle, familiar light. Instead, they were wild, weary, and held something dangerous. June took a step back. The cat moved differently. No longer with Nimbus's clumsy, endearing gait, but with steady, powerful steps. When June reached out to touch its head, instead of leaning into her hand the way Nimbus always did, the cat stiffened, ears perked, body tense. And in that moment, June understood. This wasn't Nimbus. A daring thought flashed through her mind. That cat wasn't Nimbus. It was a young bobcat, nearly identical to Nimbus in appearance, but entirely different in essence. A quiet, ruthless, yet strangely gentle switch. As if nature were conducting some kind of experiment, using a child's heart as the crucible. At the same time, deep within the ancient forest, Nimbus was living in a strange dream, or perhaps the harshest trial of his life. He awoke in a warm stone nest, sheltered by pine branches and damp moss, surrounded by 3 other small creatures, kittens as well, but not like him. They were bobcat cubs, with sturdy bodies, sharp claws, and eyes made for battle. Among them, the one just delivered to June's home, bore the exact same coat as Nimbus. Jet black, soft as smoke, tiny, a perfect replica. And thus, the strange exchange began. A natural trial, a living experiment, a test no one asked for, and yet all were forced into. 2 families, one of humans, the other of the wild, suddenly intertwined in silence, without greetings, without resistance. The first day living with the stranger, the kitten June quietly named Ash, was full of discoveries that left her both amazed and unsettled. The Harper family didn't notice the difference. Her mother, Elena, whispered that perhaps Nimbus had matured after his week away. Her father nodded. Looked stronger now, maybe learned to hunt in the woods. Only June knew. Knew for certain Ash wasn't a house cat. He didn't eat the canned pâté the family always gave Nimbus. Instead, when no one was looking, Ash leapt onto the kitchen counter and took down a defrosting piece of raw meat with such precision that it was chilling to watch. Ash's wild nature became more obvious each day. He didn't nap lazily on the sofa, but preferred the highest places he could find. The top of the bookshelf, the fridge, the crossbeam near the ceiling. From there, he watched the whole room like a sentry. Eyes sharp, not seeking affection, but prey. Toys that used to roll, balls, plastic mice, even light spots on the floor, were no longer games. They were prey, and Ash turned every movement into a real hunt. At night, Ash stood by the window, his gaze fixed on the deep woods where he was born, where his instincts called him. On moonlit nights, he tried to claw his way outside, gripping the curtain, his eyes glowing with some unspoken summons. Once, while the family was watching TV, a moth flew in through a crack in the door. Ash, like a coiled spring, shot out from behind the chair and pounced so perfectly that the whole family gasped. "Nimbus caught it," her father exclaimed. "Wow, that forest trip turned him into a real hunter." Elena nodded, though her eyes hesitated. "I don't know what happened, but he's clearly not the same cat." June said nothing. She wanted to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Who would believe her? A story about a bobcat switching kittens? It sounded like a winter fairy tale, And maybe it was. Only this time the tale was real. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Nimbus began to understand. Love and instinct were two different languages. He wasn't prepared for the wild. His first hunting lesson was a disaster. The bobcat mother led the cubs deep into the forest. When a vole appeared, the three bobcat siblings instantly crouched, ears erect, stalking it with every instinct born in their blood. Nimbus. He stood frozen, eyes wide with panic, heart pounding like thunder. No idea what to do. The bobcat mother killed the vole and pushed its limp body toward him as a gift or a test. Nimbus stared at it, cold, lifeless, reeking, and nearly vomited. But by the third night, hunger became a cruel teacher. Nimbus took his first bite of meat in his life. The raw taste hit him like a wave. But he ate, because if he didn't, he would die. The bobcat mother watched, not judging, not coddling, just the steady gaze of a creature who knew every living being needs time to become what it is meant to be. Each day, she taught him how to hide, how to climb trees to escape predators, how to hear sounds human ears could not detect. At first, the bobcat cubs mocked Nimbus, hissing at him softly, a reminder that he was the one who knew nothing. But then, one day the eldest left behind an injured bat for Nimbus to try his luck. He trembled. But then he pounced without hesitation. Hunger, loneliness, and the silent kindness of a wild mother had begun to do what June never could, teach him to survive. That first night in the stone nest was a near nightmare for Nimbus. No warm wicker basket, no June to curl against, no gentle nightlight to lull him to sleep. Only thick darkness, the chilling sounds of the forest, and the heavy breathing of creatures Nimbus couldn't see. Only knew that if they sensed his weakness, they wouldn't hesitate to tear him apart. He huddled in a corner of the nest, his body trembling. His back pressed against the cold stone wall. He shut his eyes, praying for June's scent to return, for this to be nothing more than a bad dream. But then, something unexpected happened. The bobcat mother came over. She didn't growl, didn't scold, didn't rush. She simply lay down beside him, gently pulling Nimbus into her chest with her front paw, and began licking his fur with slow, firm strokes, as if soothing the panic out of him, one layer at a time. For the first time, Nimbus relaxed. Maybe the forest wasn't just a place of death. Maybe he could survive this night. And then, day by day, Nimbus began to change. He learned how to move silently across dry leaves, how to feel the wind and know when danger was near, how to crouch low at the sound of something unfamiliar. None of it came from words, but from instinct, something he didn't know he had. The instinct of a predator, yet every night before sleep took him, when the insects quieted and the moon broke across the high branches, Nimbus still thought of June. Of the small house on Cedar Street, the warm scent of the evening kitchen, and the fur blanket embroidered with his name. He wondered, was June looking for him? Did she notice the imposter? Did she stand by the window and whisper the name Nimbus the way he used to hear? Somewhere else, June was also inching closer to the truth. 2 weeks had passed since the day Nimbus returned, and she had grown increasingly certain that the creature living in her house was not her old companion. Ash, the name she had given the new cat, was not only different in behavior, it was the tiniest of details. Like claws that were longer and more curved, sharper canines, and a faint scar behind the right ear that Nimbus had never had. One time, as she brushed Ash's fur, a sliver of light caught his back and revealed faint markings, almost invisible in the black coat, but still there. Wild markings, the signs of a species nature had chosen to live outside the reach of human light. Nimbus had never had those markings. June began digging deeper. She spent an entire afternoon in the library, reading everything she could find about bobcats. She read about melanistic mutations, rare black bobcats that could easily be mistaken for domestic cats. And then she came across a sentence that made her heart stop. Female bobcats have been known to adopt abandoned kittens if they resemble their own offspring. She put the book down, and within her, the final puzzle piece fell into place. That night, June tried something small. She placed a slice of raw beef next to Ash's usual bowl of pâté. The cat didn't hesitate. He pounced and tore into the bloody red meat, spraying drops across the counter. He didn't even glance at the processed food. "Elena, what's the cat doing?" Her mother, just stepping into the kitchen, froze. June swallowed hard. Maybe trying something new. Elena frowned. Strange. He's never eaten raw meat before. June only nodded, hiding the truth curling tight in her chest. She knew, as clear as the moonlight spilling across the yard, that Nimbus had never returned. And the biggest question still hung in the air. If he hadn't come home, then where was he? On the far side of the forest, Nimbus was becoming something he never imagined. After 3 weeks, he could hunt small prey on his own. He moved like a shadow across the ground, leaving no trace. He began to understand the language of the wild, a slight nod for approval, a flick of the tail as a warning, a deep growl that marked a boundary not to be crossed. But he wasn't entirely bobcat. There were still nights when Nimbus climbed to the highest branch and stared toward the faintly glowing town in the distance. He missed June's scent, missed her soft calling, missed the touch of her fingers on his forehead like she was comforting a lost soul. The bobcat mother felt it too. She knew Nimbus had learned, knew he had survived, but she also knew he had never truly belonged here. Sometimes she saw him playing with dry leaves or a round stone as if rebuilding memories of a gentler world. And she understood. One day, he would leave. Not because he rejected instinct, but because of something else. Something deeper than instinct. The memory of love. At moments like that, when she saw Nimbus playing alone with a dry leaf or a small pebble, a behavior found only in house cats, the bobcat mother would stand a short distance away, silently watching. Her gaze was neither judging nor tender. It resembled the look of someone weighing something significant. Then one night, the moon was full again. She awoke suddenly, carefully stepping over her 3 sleeping cubs in the stone nest. Nimbus, though drowsy, instantly stirred. He followed her in silence, weaving between ancient tree trunks, crossing wet moss and dew-soaked leaves, until they reached a clearing where moonlight poured down onto the forest floor like a stage. Nimbus stopped. 3 other bobcats were waiting. A large, muscular male, likely the leader. Beside him, 2 smaller females, their eyes sharp and guarded. No one spoke a sound, but the air was thick with tension. The bobcat mother placed Nimbus at the front. Though afraid, he tried to stand tall. She stayed close by his side as if protecting him or presenting him. The bobcat leader stepped forward. Slowly, his amber eyes scanned every detail. He sniffed along Nimbus's back from tail to nape, then stopped at his eyes. A low growl escaped him, not aggressive, but with the tone of judgment. After a moment, he nodded. The bobcat mother nodded back. No one spoke, but Nimbus knew. Something had just been decided. Something big. Something that would change his fate. Then she turned her head, gazing into the distance. Toward the little town at the base of the hill, its streetlights flickering like a vague calling. Nimbus felt his heart pounding. Across the town, in a room filled with books and worry, June was finally doing what she had hesitated to do for days, writing a letter to Dr. Cora Vinter, the wildlife biologist who once visited her school to speak about wild animals. In the letter, she didn't mention the switch. She simply explained that her cat had gone missing for a week and returned with strange, wild instincts. She asked, "Can a domestic cat develop wild traits after living in the forest?" And had any bobcats been recorded in the eastern Silver Pine area near her home? 2 days later, a reply arrived. Not just an email, but an invitation for a face-to-face meeting. "This case is too unusual," Dr. Vinter wrote, "and eerily coincidental." The next day, June asked her parents for permission to visit the research station on the edge of the national park. She told them it was for a school science project. Her father, Tom, agreed to drive her. The research station was a weathered wooden cabin nestled in a pine forest, its chimney puffing smoke and a faded metal sign that read, "Cora Vinter, Wildlife Biologist." Dr. Vinter was a middle-aged woman with black and silver hair tied back neatly, thick glasses, and eyes that seemed to have seen more than words could ever tell. She listened as June recounted everything, from the night Nimbus disappeared to the moment Ash jumped into her home. Identical, but not the same. At the end, the doctor sat quietly for a moment, then said, "You know, my team has been tracking a female bobcat with 4 cubs. And strangely enough, one of those cubs has a completely black coat, something extremely rare in the wild." She opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of camera trap photos. June held her breath as she looked. A mother bobcat stood among 3 spotted cubs, and a 4th one, jet black from head to tail, stood slightly apart, its eyes cautious. "Taken 2 weeks ago," Dr. Vinter said. "But there's more." She flipped to a more recent photo, pointed to a 6th figure. June gasped, nearly breaking down. "That's Nimbus." A small cat standing behind the bobcat family, its frame out of place, but its eyes unmistakably familiar. "We assumed it was a lost house cat," Dr. Vinter nodded. "But what's extraordinary is the bobcat mother is caring for it like her own." She paused, her voice dropping as if afraid to break something sacred. "This is one of the rarest phenomena in wild animal behavior, almost never recorded." June slowly placed her hand on the photo, her heart trembling with emotion. "That's Nimbus," she whispered, "and he's still alive." Then she looked straight into the woman's eyes. "And Ash isn't him?" Dr. Vinter nodded. "If your theory is correct, and I believe it is, then it's very likely the bobcat mother intentionally switched her cub." "But why would she do that?" June asked softly, as if fearing the answer might make everything too real, too painful. Dr. Vinter was silent for a long time. She closed her eyes for a moment, then replied, slowly and carefully, as if weighing each word. "Perhaps it was instinct. Black bobcats, those with melanistic mutations, face more danger in the wild. They lack the camouflage of their spotted siblings. A cub like Ash might be a burden, or a constant fear in its mother's heart." She looked at June. "But if raised in a home like this, it would be safer, and you, your family, may have unknowingly become its final refuge." June said nothing, her chest filled with a feeling she couldn't name, a blend of awe and deep, quiet heartbreak. Ash wasn't an intruder, not a replacement child. He was a life entrusted to her, a silent plea from a wild mother, handing over her most fragile offspring to human hands, hoping it might live. "What should I do now?" June asked, barely a whisper. "Nimbus belongs with me, but Ash needs to go home." The problem is, we can't just carry a bobcat into the woods, Dr. Winter replied, her eyes glinting with gravity. Bobcats are protected. Any intervention must follow the law, but... She paused, then leaned in slightly. We don't need to take them, we just need to create the opportunity for the right thing to happen. The plan was laid out that very night. They would set up a special humane trap in June's backyard. It would have 2 compartments, each with a separate door, operated by a smart timer mechanism. The goal, to allow for a reverse exchange, to return Ash to the forest and bring Nimbus back to where he truly belonged. Dr. Winter gave clear instructions. We're not trapping, we're just standing aside. If anything happens, it will be because they chose it. The full moon returned, and with it, the night the final door would open. June sat in her room, Ash curled at her feet, unable to sleep. The air was taut like a drawn string. The lights were off. The backyard lay still, silent, touched only by moonlight on the thin snow, clearly revealing the trap placed under the old maple tree. Ash had been restless since early evening, pacing near the window. He knew. June could feel it. Through his breath, his tension, the way he stared into the forest, as if hearing someone call. At exactly 10 p.m. A faint sound stirred in the yard, like grass pressed under a paw, like the wind shifting direction. June crept to the window. Her eyes widened. Her heart nearly stopped. There, under the cold silver moon, the bobcat mother stood in her backyard. And behind her was Nimbus, thinner, quieter, but whole. And when his eyes lifted and met hers through the window glass, that gaze shattered her world, then gathered it back in a single breath. Nimbus paused at the edge of the yard, where the grass had yet to frost. He inhaled deeply, the scent of pine wood and old kitchen smoke still lingering in the air. Every blade of grass, every stone felt familiar, like a memory struggling to surface from a dream. Yet at the same time, it all felt foreign, as if he were stepping into a place that once was his, but now required permission to return. June held her breath. She gently pulled Ash closer, whispering, "It's Nimbus. It's really him." With her father's help, she placed Ash into one of the trap's compartments. The young bobcat struggled at first, but then, catching the scent of familiar raw meat, he quietly stepped inside. In the shadows, Dr. Winter and 2 assistants hid behind the wooden fence, ready to intervene if needed. But everyone knew this moment didn't belong to humans. The bobcat mother stepped cautiously into the garden, shoulders stiffened by the scent of humans, by the foreign machinery, and by the unnatural silence. But she didn't retreat. Nimbus followed, silently, ears erect, eyes fixed on the trap where the porch once stood. And then he saw the torn plush mouse. The tiny pillow embroidered with the letter N is now faded. He ran, forgot caution, forgot every instinct he had just learned. The door clicked shut behind him with a soft snap like wind. Ash and Nimbus now sat face to face, separated by a wire mesh. Neither hissed, neither growled. They just looked. A single gaze stretched from forest to town, from where one was born to where one was chosen, from instinct to love. Ash let out a soft growl. Nimbus responded with a gentle meow, like 2 languages, different but understanding one another. At once, the bobcat mother roared. Her cry tore through the night. She lunged at the cage, her eyes blazing, claws scraping the metal surface as if to shred every boundary. "Release now," Dr. Winter whispered sharply through the radio. Tom pressed the button from inside the house. Both doors sprang open. Ash bolted out first. No looking back, no hesitation. He ran straight into his mother's chest like a lost child, finally finding its heartbeat. Nimbus also emerged, but didn't run. He stood there in the middle of the yard, between two worlds. On one side was June, trembling, arms open, eyes brimming with tears. On the other hand, the Bobcat mother gently licked Ash's head with a tenderness almost sacred. Nimbus turned his head, looked at June, then looked at his mother. The air froze, as if the entire forest held its breath. The Bobcat mother looked at him for a long time, then turned her gaze toward June. Her eyes weren't those of an enemy. They were the eyes of a mother, returning a gift once borrowed. A soft growl escaped, not a threat, but permission. And the moment that sound echoed, Nimbus leapt into June's arms. She collapsed, wrapping herself around his small, scarred body, laughing and crying at once. "We're home," she whispered. "This time, forever." From the forest's edge, the Bobcat mother and Ash watched them for a long moment. Then, like a trail of smoke, they turned and vanished into the mist. No wave goodbye was needed. One meeting was enough. In the weeks that followed, Nimbus slowly recovered. He remained swift, hunted garden mice like a pro, climbed trees like an acrobat, but every night curled up in June's lap like a child. He had learned instinct, but never lost loyalty. Dr. Winter visited several times, checked his health, documented his new habits, and the old ones that refused to fade. She also brought good news. Forest cameras had captured footage of the Bobcat mother and Ash, healthy, well-adapted, even leading hunts. "This is one of the strangest cases I've ever documented," she said, "where neither world loses. They simply switched roles." The story gradually spread through the scientific community. Dr. Winter's article became a rare document on cross-species offspring exchange between wild and domestic animals. June's identity was kept private, but the way her eyes lit up as she told the story in biology class made dozens of classmates believe, for the first time, that nature isn't just instinct. Nature also knows how to love, and sometimes, on full moon nights, Nimbus sat by the window, eyes facing the forest, and sometimes, just sometimes, June believed she saw a dark silhouette flicker near the garden's edge. Whether it was Ash or a nameless love quietly returning, she never knew. She always ended the story with a whisper. There are secrets that only appear in the moonlight, and there are connections science will never reach. That's how nature says thank you, and how love finds its way home. Years later, on a light autumn rain afternoon, June, now a biology student, returned to the old house with her mother. Everything was still there: the wooden porch, the window where she once waited, and the old woven basket where Nimbus once slept. She opened the window, letting the wind rush in. Across the edge of the forest, the leaves stirred like breath, and in that very moment, a dark shape emerged through the gentle rain. Whether it was a cat, a bobcat, or just a memory taking shape again, June didn't need to know. She smiled, because once your heart has connected with the wild, there's no such thing as a final goodbye, only reunions in another form.